What would have interested you the most in your chapter as an undergrad, and what interests you the most now?
I think as an undergrad, I would have been fascinated by the fact that stress has an effect on the brain, that mind and body, that physiology is so connected to the mind. And at the time that I was an undergrad, it was a revolutionary idea. It actually speaks to the field and to how much we moved from there, that this is now a very given thing, that we take it as granted, and we can look into mechanism. Now, what we started with is looking for very robust changes, like what does stress change for the whole group that we wanted to be different. And when I see it now, from my own eyes right now, what's most interesting is the fact that it's a robust reaction for some individuals, but not for others. So the individual variation in the response and the fact that there are what we call non-responders, and in fact, in the paper that we're all working on now, to see that the non-responders actually have a very active response of resilience, all of that is, to me, what's now the most interesting about stress research.
So what I like the most in the chapter of stress neurobiology as an undergrad would be that how stress impact individual bodies, how body reacts, how the brain reacts, and those are valuables like individual mechanism that I would love to actually understand. Back in college, I was always like fascinated by like how individual organs, brains actually change over time, like in response to stimuli of like such as stress. Closer to my current stage of training, what I am currently would be most interested in regard to this chapter would be the neural circuitries. So now that you have an understanding about individual regions, like organs, how body reacts, and ultimately, I would actually hope that you would be interested in some aspect how the brains and then the body as a whole will react in response to stress. So ultimately, the take-home message that I would love to share is that it's just not just one part of your body that will react to stress, it's actually your entire body. And of course, it's actually the circuitries also works the similar manners where not just hippocampus, amygdala, it would be the entire circuitry as a whole. So I'd love you to have the understanding about the entire as a whole mechanisms.
So as an undergrad, I think what would have been the most interesting thing to me about this chapter is, how complex stress really is. I mean, everybody experiences it, and being Native American, I feel like resilience is such a strong message among our people that, it's an obvious thing for everyone to want to attain some level of resilience when it comes to stress. And I think, starting to understand the level of detail and, the very complex mechanisms underlying all of the, stressors that we experience in our lives, I think that would have been, very eye-opening for me as an undergrad. And of course, that all still interests me now. I think it has just shifted a little bit to where I am interested in, my research focuses a little bit on, psychedelic effects on stress behaviors. And this is very much applicable to, my people still. This is very much still applicable to my people in that, indigenous communities use psychedelics in traditional ways. And so in that way, my interests have expanded, but I'm still very much interested in, how complex and amazing our brains and our entire bodies are when it comes to our stress responses and resilience.
So I think as an undergrad, similar to how Daniela had mentioned, I was very interested in actually learning, that stress is a physiological response. And, like back in the day, it was more like, well, anxiety, that's all in your head, or, psychological stress is different than, physical stress. But it turns out that the mechanism, it actually works on the same body systems, and it's this alarm response. And so learning that helped me a lot, actually, and just thinking about, my own stress and how I dealt with it. And I think that now, after, going through school and graduate school, what I'm very interested is on the positive aspects of stress, right? And how some like acute stressors can be actually beneficial. And so I really enjoyed thinking about things like reappraisal, right? And so, for example, like if you reframe a stressful experience as a positive thing, it can actually change the physiological response. And I was just like, oh, that just like blows my mind. It's so interesting, like just how you think about it. And also, I've always been interested in other, like more proactive techniques for dealing with stress, for example, like exercise. And it's super interesting to me to think, for example, like exercise itself is a stressor. And so in a sense, you're applying a stressor to your body in order to expand like that, stress coping capacity and resilience. And so I'm interested in how those mechanisms might actually work.